Tonight in Dark Case Files, the story opens not with a scream, not with blood, but with something far more disturbing. A single, almost meaningless detail that everyone ignored for months until it shattered an entire narrative and exposed a truth so cold it rewrote the case from the inside out.
At 2:17 a.m.,
a neighbor's security camera captured a flicker of movement near a darkened house on Ashbury Lane. And while the footage seemed worthless at first glance, a barely visible anomaly hidden within those frames would later become the one clue that broke the entire case, transforming an unsolved mystery into one of the most chilling true crime stories investigators had ever faced. The town of Briarwood was the kind of place people described as quiet, even when they meant forgettable. A suburban pocket wrapped in routine, early morning joggers, porch lights switching off at dawn, and neighbors who waved without really knowing each other's names. And it was here, on a damp October morning in 2016, that 34-year-old Lavra Whitman failed to show up for work, setting off the subtle chain of concern that would eventually uncover a calculated crime hiding behind the illusion of normalcy. Lavra was a forensic accountant, methodical, organized, known among her colleagues for her precision and among her friends for her reliability. The kind of person who always answered messages and never missed appointments. So when her phone went straight to voicemail and her office chair sat empty past noon, her supervisor called the police for a welfare check, not expecting to be the first voice in a story that would soon dominate every local headline. Officers arrived at Laura's home just after 1 p.m., finding her car still parked in the driveway, keys inside, her purse on the kitchen counter, the house locked from the outside with no immediate signs of forced entry, and unsettling stillness hanging in the air like a held breath. Inside, everything appeared untouched. The bed neatly made, dishes cleaned and stacked, laptop closed, except for one detail so minor it barely earned a note in the first report. A coffee mug sitting in the sink, stained with the faint ring of dried liquid, as if left in the middle of a routine morning that never finished. Lavra was officially declared missing that evening, and as the hours stretched into days, the search expanded beyond Briarwood, with volunteers combing nearby parks, police tracing phone records, and detectives beginning the slow, meticulous process of reconstructing her final known movements. The background of the case seemed straightforward at first. Lavra lived alone, recently divorced, no children, no known enemies, no history of violence, no financial trouble beyond the typical pressures of modern life, and her ex-husband, Mark, had moved out of state 2 years earlier, quickly ruled out due to distance and phone records, placing him hundreds of miles away. Neighbors reported nothing unusual the night before. No screams, no arguments, no suspicious vehicles lingering under streetlights, and security footage from nearby homes showed nothing more than passing cars and occasional headlights washing briefly across the pavement. As days turned into weeks, investigators began to suspect voluntary disappearance, a theory that never fully fit but was tempting in the absence of evidence, because there was no body, no blood, no struggle, just a woman seemingly erased from her own life, leaving behind a perfectly staged normality that felt almost deliberate. Laura's friends rejected the idea entirely, describing her as deeply rooted, career-driven, and emotionally stable, someone who made plans for months ahead and had recently been talking about adopting a dog, a detail that haunted those who knew her, as they imagined bowls and leashes that would never be used. The investigation shifted gears when forensic teams re-entered the house with fresh eyes, treating it not as a missing person scenario, but as a potential crime scene, photographing every surface, dusting for prints, and cataloging even the most mundane objects. And it was during the second sweep that attention returned to the kitchen sink, to that forgotten coffee mug. Initial lab results showed only Laura's prints. No foreign DNA, no signs of tampering, but a junior technician noted something odd about the timing. The coffee residue suggested it had been left for hours before being washed, yet the rest of the kitchen was spotless, as if someone had cleaned around it without noticing it at all. It was an observation filed away and nearly forgotten, overshadowed by more dramatic leads, including a brief focus on a former coworker who had exchanged tense emails with Lavra weeks earlier over a financial discrepancy, a lead that ultimately went nowhere. The case stalled. Public interest waned, and for nearly 3 months, Lavra Whitman became a name spoken mostly by family and a shrinking circle of investigators who refused to let the file gather dust. Everything changed the night a new detective, Daniel Reyes, took another look at the raw security footage from Ashbury Lane The same footage dismissed early in the case as inconclusive. Unlike others before him, Reyes wasn't looking for a person. He was looking for time, frame by frame, second by second, analyzing light patterns, shadows and motion anomalies, and in doing so, he noticed something that shouldn't have been there. A brief reflection in the window of a parked car that flared and disappeared in less than half a second. Enhanced and slowed down, the reflection revealed a shape consistent not with a person, but with an object, a long, narrow silhouette momentarily catching the porch light before vanishing from view. Investigators debated its significance, some arguing it was nothing more than a passing reflection or camera artifact, but Reyes persisted, cross-referencing the timestamp with weather reports, traffic logs, and even neighborhood electrical data, eventually realizing that the porch light had been manually turned on and off at that precise moment, something Lavra rarely did as her light was on a timer according to utility records. This discovery reopened the case with a renewed sense of urgency, shifting focus back to the immediate neighborhood, and to the possibility that someone Lavra knew, someone familiar with her routines, had been inside that house. Attention soon centered on Thomas Hall, Laura's next-door neighbor. A quiet IT consultant who worked remotely, recently moved in, polite but reserved. Someone who knew Lavra well enough to exchange occasional conversations over the fence and accept packages when she was away. Halle had been interviewed early in the investigation and cleared his alibi, placing him at home all night, logged into his work system, a digital footprint that seemed airtight until investigators realized those logs could be manipulated by someone with his technical expertise. When police revisited Halle, he appeared cooperative, calm, perhaps too calm, answering questions with rehearsed ease, and while nothing overtly incriminating surfaced, subtle inconsistencies in his timeline began to emerge, small gaps where his computer activity paused for minutes at a time during the early hours of the morning Lavra disappeared. A search warrant was obtained for Hale's home, yielding no physical evidence linking him directly to Lavra, no blood, no personal items, nothing to justify an arrest. But the investigation now revolved around him like a tightening noose driven by instinct as much as facts. The real turning point came when forensic analysts returned once more to the coffee mug, this time not focusing on prints or DNA, but on composition, testing the residue itself for traces of contaminants, and what they found reframed the entire case. The coffee contained a sedative, a prescription-grade substance used to induce deep sleep, something Lavra had never been prescribed, and something that could only have been administered intentionally, likely mixed into her drink shortly before she vanished. This single clue, overlooked for months, confirmed what many had feared but could not prove. Lavra had not left willingly. She had been incapacitated inside her own home. Investigators now had a crime, and with it, motive and opportunity came sharply into focus. Hale's medical records revealed no prescriptions matching the sedative, but his online search history recovered through court order told a more disturbing story: weeks of late-night searches about drug half-lives, detection windows, and the effects of sedatives mixed with alcohol or caffeine. Confronted with this evidence, Hale's demeanor shifted, cracks forming in the calm exterior, but he continued to deny involvement, insisting any searches were for a writing project, a claim that unraveled when police searched his deleted files and found a detailed fictional outline eerily mirroring Laura's disappearance. Under pressure, Halle eventually admitted to being inside Laura's house that night, claiming she had invited him in and that she had simply fallen asleep after drinking coffee, a narrative that collapsed instantly under scrutiny as phone records showed no calls or messages supporting his story. Faced with overwhelming circumstantial evidence and the now undeniable fact of the drugged coffee, prosecutors moved forward with charges, even in the absence of a body, building a case around timeline reconstruction, digital footprints, and the chilling logic of the one clue that changed everything. During the trial, the defense attacked the coffee mug evidence relentlessly, arguing contamination, mishandling, coincidence, but expert testimony dismantled those claims piece by piece, explaining how the sedative could not have been present naturally and how its chemical signature matched substances Halle had ordered online under an alias. The jury listened as prosecutors painted a narrative of control and obsession, suggesting Halle had watched Lavra, learned her routines, and exploited her trust, using his technical skills to fabricate alibis and erase digital traces, only to be undone by a single overlooked detail left behind in a sink. After 3 days of deliberation, the verdict came back guilty, and Thomas Halley was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A conviction secured not by dramatic evidence or eyewitness testimony, but by patience, persistence, and a willingness to re-examine what seemed insignificant. Louvre. Whitman's body was never found leaving her family without the closure they desperately sought, but the case set a legal precedent proving that even in the absence of a corpse, truth could be established through science logic, and that one fragile thread of evidence capable of unraveling an entire lie. The community of Briarwood was forever changed. Neighbors who once waved now installing extra locks, trusting less, watching more, haunted by the knowledge that danger had lived quietly among them, hidden behind polite smiles and routine gestures. In the world of true crime, this case stands as a reminder that evil rarely announces itself loudly, that it often hides in plain sight, waiting for complacency to look away, and that sometimes the smallest clue, the one everyone dismisses, is the key that breaks everything wide open. This has been Dark Case Files, that reminds us how fragile certainty really is and how justice can hinge on something as ordinary as a forgotten cup of coffee. And now we leave the question with you. If that one clue had never been noticed, would this crime have remained forever unsolved? If stories like this keep you questioning the shadows behind everyday life, subscribe to Dark Case Files for more true crime investigations that refuse to let the truth stay buried.